I'd like to start this meeting by recognizing the homeland of the 30 First Nation communities of this area we now call the Fraser Valley Regional District, where we live, work, and learn. Important decisions that we make at a local government level can affect First Nations communities and Indigenous peoples and organizations in many different ways, both today and in the future. So as part of our collective responsibility, I commit that we continually examine the work we do to ensure that our project plans, initiatives, and discussion are guided by the principles of inclusion, collaboration, and reconciliation. So with that in mind, I'd like to call to order the February 2nd, 2023 Groundhog Day meeting of the Electoral Area Services Committee. And thanks to our CAO.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. So the first item on our agenda is the Chair's report on the Regional and Corporate Services Committee meeting held this morning.
Okay, thank you. It was quite a quiet meeting. A number of us attended. We talked about outdoor management in the Fraser Valley Regional District. I think the point was made by some of the electoral area directors that there's less of a need for marketing our outdoor recreation potential, and we're to the point now where it's more a case of managing the usage that's already there, that we're becoming overwhelmed with the number of people from outside our area that are using our outdoor recreational areas in some places. We spoke about bringing in perhaps some representation from the Ministry of Forests regarding our FSR access to recreational outdoor areas, and staff say that they'll work on that. And we also spoke about the invasive weed program. I believe the Mayor of Mission was interested in that being expanded to the City of Mission. And that was all that I remember us talking about this morning. Turning it back to our CAO.
Thank you. So item 4 is approval of the agenda, addenda, and late items.
For motion, move Director Johnson, second Director Adamo. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Contrary? Motion carries. And good to see Director Davidson on TV here. So, how do you? Good.
Item 5.1 is a presentation on snow removal in the FVRD electoral areas. We have Neil Moulton, who is the area manager for the Fraser Valley South from the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, and Sheldon Datt, quality manager from Emil Anderson Maintenance.
Welcome, gentlemen.
I'm excited.
All right, I think we're live. Again, thank you for having us today. Appreciate the opportunity. Certainly some familiar faces in the room and some new ones, and just glad to meet everybody. I am Neil Moulton. I'm with the Ministry of Transportation. I'm your local road area manager. My territory covers essentially Aldergrove to Hope, everything south of the Fraser River. From there, my counterpart Ian Mendrusiak takes care of what we call the East End, which is the Hope to Manning Park, Highway 3 up to Eastgate, and Highway 1 up through the Fraser Canyon is Ian's territory. And then we also have Galrays Chima, who's somewhat new for us. He's on the north side of the Fraser River, so essentially Mission to Hope on the north side, Highway 7. And of course, I think everybody in this room is familiar with the amount of side roads that exist out there, which I think FVRD has a pretty good stake in. So certainly we are very close working partners, and just really appreciate you giving us the opportunity here today. And please fire off any questions you may have afterwards. I'll introduce Sheldon Datt. Sheldon's a quality manager with Emil Anderson. Emil Anderson Maintenance is our contracted highway maintenance contractor. They're responsible for everything from drainage to snow removal to stakeholder complaints, who I know a lot of you are very familiar with as well. So I'll let Sheldon take it over. We do an annual winter maintenance stakeholder meeting once annually that we typically will invite all of the elected officials from FVRD. I think this year with some new faces, our stakeholder list wasn't quite updated in time. So I apologize if we missed people on our winter stakeholder meeting this year. We'll certainly get that organized for next year. But
excuse me, Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Director Davidson.
I'm just wondering if well, two things. One is that in my mind, there's no such thing as side roads. They're just unnumbered provincial highways. And the second thing is, can we interrupt and ask questions as we go? Thank you.
Gentlemen, would you allow us to ask questions as we go along?
Absolutely, yeah. I
Good.
invite any questions.
Okay, then thank you. And I'm thinking back to the winter program meeting. Director Davidson was there and myself and maybe no one else. Yeah. Good. So Mr. Dot, were you going to make a presentation?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, as Neil said, terribly sorry that not everyone could join us on the meeting, but we are looking at hosting it more often now with the interest that we've been receiving and with the new faces all across the board on different agencies. So we're thinking about doing a winter meeting now in Abbotsford, Chilliwack, and Hope. And I think pretty confident that we'll be doing the Chilliwack one in this building right here. Tarina was one who kind of offered that up initially, and I think that's probably a good way to do it. So that'll be a good way to get everyone here involved in that as well. So, so yeah, this is the winter presentation that I've just sort of rehashed for today. I understand that everyone here was interested in just a little blurb about what the winter operation is like. So I'll just I'll go through that presentation here. And first slide is sort of the service area breakdown. So Emil Anderson Maintenance is one of 28. Sorry, that's not true. One of a number of contracted maintenance contractors in the province. There are 28 service areas, and the Fraser Valley is the 7th one. So Emil Anderson operates in service area 7. We also operate in service area 20 and 26, which is the Robson area, contains McBride and Tejon and Belmont, and 26 is the Skeena area, which is Terrace. So we have 3 areas total. But service area 7 is the Fraser Valley, and you can see we've got some major towns and municipalities here in the diagram. We've got Hope, Boston Bar, and Allison Pass, and there are some associated highways there. Highway 1, 3, and 5, and we have Highway 1 in Fraser Canyon, and Highway 3 is Manning Park. We are split up into 2 ends, sort of how we run our operation. So there's the east end and the west end. The east end is sort of the cutoff there is Hunter Creek or Hope, and the west end is everything west of that. So we've got Chilliwack, Rosedale, Abbotsford, Mission, and Agassiz. These locations that we've got listed are also where our maintenance yards are. So the main office yard is Rosedale, but we also have a moderately sized one in Hope and Abbotsford as well. And you can see some corresponding numbered routes there and in main roads like Cultus Lake and Chilliwack Lake Road. Next slide. I want to talk a little bit about the boundaries. Boundaries are very important. These are the service area entrance and exit points. So on the western side, the western boundary is Highway 1 at 264th. So that is neighboring service area 6. You can see it's about 15 kilometers west of Abbotsford. Service area 6 is the Lower Mainland district, and the maintenance contractor there is Main Road Group. And if you want to get a hold of them, this is their 24-hour number to get a hold of them for any kind of deficiencies or issues that you might be finding. The eastern boundary there, we have a number of them. So we've got one boundary at Highway 3, which is the location is called Sunday Summit, and it's about 100 kilometers east of Hope. So you keep going past Manning Park, up the climb there, and you get to Sunday Summit. The neighbor there is Service Area 8, South Okanagan, and the contractor is AIM Roads, and their number is there as well. A couple more boundaries. We have a northern and a northeastern boundary. So going straight north on Highway 1, you will eventually get to Jackass Summit. You might be familiar with that because that's the site of a major event where there was a significant washout, and now we have a bridge structure in place. So that's about 26 kilometers north of Boston Bar. And the contractor there, the service area is Service Area 14, Nicola, and the contractor is Yellowhead Road and Bridge. And then the last boundary is Highway 5 at Portia, which is exit 202. So that's about 30 kilometers, give or take, east of Hope. And the boundary is the same. It's also Service Area 14, Nicola. And the map can kind of show you that a little bit. It illustrates that. You can see 14 and 8 on the side and Service Area 6 on the western side. Okay, moving on, I wanted to give you guys a quick little glimpse of what the road network is like in Service Area 7. I just quickly put this in the last minute. This is a screenshot from Google Earth of our road network. This is provided to us directly from the ministry. The colors don't matter. They are randomly generated every time you open up Google Earth, but you can kind of see what the road network is like. So you've got the main numbered routes. You can see, you can kind of spot them if you look at where the town sites are. And you've got a number of side roads or secondary roads. So that's sort of what's in the under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Transportation, and so responsible for us to maintain. And you might be able to spot some significant roads there, like Chilliwack Lake Road, Silver Road, Sylvester Road, so on. Okay, moving forward, we have a little bit of blurb about equipment and materials. So, I mean, this is more for the public. I'm sure everyone here is already aware, but you know, our equipment fleet is primarily plow trucks, tandem and trident plow trucks. We also operate smaller vehicles, F1, F550 plow vehicles that are capable of spreading material just like the plow trucks. Sometimes they're equipped with front plows, and sometimes they're just equipped with underbody plows. It might not be visible, but if you don't see a front plow, they're still usually in operation, plowing from in between the axles. And a lot of times they carry the side wing attachment. You can see that on the side there. Side wing attachments are very, very effective at clearing out large swaths of lanes. The main thing we want to tell everyone is to keep your distance from these plow trucks when they're in operation. You know they're in operation when the lights are flashing. Very important not to pass them on the right, because you can end up with a lot of snow on your vehicle and a lot of damage, and you can risk damaging the plow. It is especially difficult to see the wing plows when they're in action. They have they have flags, they have lights, but when they're plowing snow, they can be almost imperceptible. And very, very easy to just tap that with the vehicle and have the plow spinning out and it be down for the season. So when the lights are flashing, it's best usually to keep yourself behind the plow, and the operator will eventually find a spot to pull over, lift everything up, and let traffic pass safely. Winter materials, they're pretty standard. I think everyone is familiar with the materials that we use. We have winter sand that is produced according to ministry spec, 9.5 millimeters, right? Yep. 9.5 millimeters is what we use. That's the largest aggregate size. There is a gradation, however, so it's not just all the same size, but the maximum aggregate size is 9.5. We are also permitted to use 12 millimeter on side roads, and I think we do in the Hatzick area. So that's winter sand, and then we also use road salt primarily in the form of liquid brine. So we purchase salt and produce our own brine. Pre-wetting is sort of it's the name of the game here. We want to get out there before the event strategically based on the weather forecasts and get the brine out there to prevent snow sticking, to prevent ice from developing. It is the most effective usage of brine. In certain situations, depending on the way the snow is falling and the way the ice is forming, we might even deploy straight salt. Quite expensive to do so, but sometimes it has its uses. But brine application is the primary method for ice control and traction control. Now, the salt is only effective up to -9. Once you get colder than that, it's usually just straight winter sand, because the salt isn't going to really do much. Yeah. And moving forward, I think this is the one most people here are really interested in seeing. It's the rundown of maintenance specifications in the winter. Now, the ministry's classification system works based on a summer and winter class system. So each road is given a summer class and a winter class. The number represents the summer class, and the letter represents the winter class. So summer classes go from 1 to 8, with 8 being unmaintained, and winter classes go from A to F, with F being unmaintained. So an 8F road is an unmaintained road, and this can be for a number of reasons. It could be uncleared right-of-way or something similar. And then numbered routes like Highway 1 are usually the ones that are 1A, the highest classification. Now, it's important to understand that classifications don't mean you get this type of maintenance. All roads get all types of maintenance as applicable. So if you're a gravel road, you get all types of gravel surface maintenance. If you're a paved road, you get all types of hard surface maintenance that are applicable. If you have ditches, you get ditch maintenance. The classifications only determine the response times for us. So when it comes to winter snow removal, you can see here for class A to D, These are the maximum accumulations that Emil Anderson is allowed before we have to plow the road. So you can see for a class A road, this is Highway 1, we're allowed 4 centimeters before we need to clear the snow. Not a lot to work with. But on the secondary roads, you can see that it grows to about 6, 10, 15. This doesn't mean we're going to let it get to that point, but it sort of gives us the space that we're allowed to work with. We don't want to let, for example, class D roads go beyond 15 centimeters. But sometimes you can get some really, really crazy events and we might get out of spec. That does happen, but we try to maintain ourselves within that spec to the best of our abilities. New to this round of contracts, this contract started in 2019. We have a second lane plowing requirement, and so the second lanes are given there, reserved for class A and B roads. And then restoring traction is very important. It is not really within our means to prevent traction loss or compromised traction, but it is our requirement to restore traction when we are notified that it has been compromised. And we can be notified either through our own patrols or through the public calling in to our 1-800 number. Very, very important that the public does that, because sometimes we may not be aware. We may be focusing on one area and we may not know that traction has been, compromised. Certain conditions might have changed rapidly. So depending on the classification, that's the response time that we're given to restore traction.
So I think Director Dixon has a question for
I do. Thank you for that.
you.
Questions, but we'll start. Two I have. So I'm up in Columbia Valley, so Cultus Lake, Columbia Valley. I'm assuming you know which roads up there are A, B, C, and D. And I don't. Is that information that is able to be shared? People will contact me and not understanding why the snowplow turned around at the fire hall or things like that, rather than carry up and do the whole loop. I mean, I understand what you're saying. It just would be helpful to have that. And I'll admit it, I'm not quite sure what you mean by restoring traction. So that after you've plowed it and it's still slippery, or what does that look like, or what does that mean?
Sure. Yeah. For the classification question, Neil, I think the classifications come from the ministry. So distribution of that, I think, comes from the ministry office.
Yep, and that's something that I can share with you immediately when I get back to the office. It's all listed out, and essentially road classes are done by average vehicles per day, and essentially roads are typically classified with material routes, feeder routes. Those are the routes that you're going to see with Class A's. Everyone's very, very familiar with. Class B roads can essentially be quite a mix. Good example is Hemlock Valley. It's not an extremely well-traveled road, but it's a road that is essentially impassable with just a little bit of winter weather. So there certainly is some engineering input and some just local observations that goes into some of the road classifications. But further to that, I mean, I think one of the most important aspects is we hold annual meetings with individual school districts. So that typically can be a large reason why somebody may see a plow on a neighboring road and not theirs. Class C is typically a school bus route, and those school bus routes, although they are Class C, which is on this format with this classification sheet, it looks like they're maybe third tier. Realistically, they're not. All the operators, all the road foremen at all the local yards really do focus on those Class C roads for the school buses, as you can imagine, for just safety of traveling school children. So there's a little bit of give and take with the road classes, and it's something that we kind of input annually as we receive comments from people like yourselves. So hopefully that helps.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Director Dixon. Director Davidson, I see. Oh.
Thank you, Chair.
Pardon me.
Yeah. So
Well, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, with the restoring traction question, yeah, I'll just clarify that these are just a couple of specs out of a grand schedule of specifications, and we have response times for various activities. Restoring traction is an activity. So if a plow truck is plowing snow off the road, they're most likely going to be spreading material as well. So the restoring traction part is already in there. But what this response time means is that if we lose traction somewhere, then we have this many hours to go out there and perform our traction restoring activities: salting, sanding, plowing, ice blading, whatever that may be. We do not want to leave traction compromised, and we definitely don't run by these numbers. We want to restore traction immediately. because it can get very dicey if we don't. Sorry, and so there's another question.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll let Director Davidson go forward and Director Castle.
Thank you, Chair. So, my own process, I let my community know about this agenda, and I had feedback from one resident who was basically sharing photos saying that EAM isn't meeting their contractual obligations because of all the snow that was on the road for a length of time during the last event. But you said something that sort of jumped out at me in this, was that you don't always meet these maximums, that there can be exceptions. So, and because I know that these specifications are available online, and that's in fact what I was looking at, and the resident was looking at. Are these specifications contractual obligations, or are they targets? And if it's first, then okay, what's the deal if the contractual obligation isn't met? And if it's the second, what's the process by which targets not being met is escalated to MOTI for some kind of action? Thank you.
Okay, so that's a good question. So it is the first point you made, that these are contractual obligation. They are a requirement for us to maintain. When I mentioned that sometimes we do not meet them, there can be a various number of situations where we're really working at trying to provide the best service, but sometimes we fall short. You know, a few years ago, Highway 3 received about a meter of snow within 9 hours, which is just astronomical. And in these situations, we really partner up with our colleagues here in the ministry who will tell us, focus on the number of routes and get to the side roads as you can get them. You know, when you're facing extraordinary storm conditions, you know, you can only do the best you can. Some side roads on Highway 3 did fall short. We went above the 15 centimeters on Class D roads. We went above the 10 on Class C roads. But working with our ministry colleagues, we just keep the public updated. We keep our social media updated so people can understand this is what the timeline is looking like. So we do our best, but sometimes extraordinary circumstances can lead us to fall out of spec. And we work with our ministry colleagues to manage that as they occur. And for the public, you know, there can be a number of reasons why their interpretation is that we are out of spec. It could be because, yeah, we are. It could be because we just missed the road, didn't realize there was a storm. Maybe we're just falling short on crews or manpower. That's completely on us. There could be, you know, lots of snow blowing going along. I remember in the Hatzick area this year, we were clearing roads, snow was blowing, restoring the accumulations, giving the impression that we weren't on the roads at all. There are a number of things that can happen. These specs don't capture all of those events and issues, but the communication is key. And as people call in and let us know what they're seeing and what's going on, we can adjust our operation as best we can.
So on the broader theme of communication, and I had raised this at the stakeholder meeting in the fall, you know, my take coming into that meeting was that calling Email Anderson, you know, usually get leave voicemail, and then it's a pretty common complaint that I hear is that Email Anderson doesn't reply. And I raised this at the stakeholder meeting in the fall, and it was suggested that I advise residents. Sorry, Steph, I'm getting a lot of feedback coming back on my audio now. I'm not sure what's causing that, but that's better. Thank you. So the suggestion from EAM was that we'll use the online form for doing submittal of complaints. And I went to a ratepayers meeting. I advised them this is the advice from Email Anderson. A month later, another ratepayers meeting saying that I learned that, yes, we're using the form, haven't heard anything back. I asked the question, well, how long ago was that? 3 or 4 days. I checked in with the same resident again just before this call, and that's going back to about 4 weeks now, and they still hadn't heard back. So when you speak to communication, it really is still apparent that we get no feedback on what we communicate, or if we do, we don't. It's hit and miss. We just don't know. So it leaves kind of an open question as to, okay, if Email Anderson doesn't reply, well, then let's try MOTI. And if MOTI doesn't reply, well, then we'll bug the area director, and the area director will go through a Q&A about, well, who did you try to call? And if all else fails, complain to your MLA. So the communication as a whole is really challenged, and the very fact that regional district directors like myself are getting pulled into it is indicative to me of a system that's just not working when it comes to communications. Anyway, so on this one, like on the maintenance specifications, you know, I need to go back and advise the resident and say, well, okay, well, express your complaint in terms of that align with the maintenance specification, resubmit it to email Anderson. If you don't get a response, complain to Moti, and if you don't get a response from Moti, complain to your MLA. And that's kind of where we're at on the communication side. It's from the complainant standpoint, it's not good at all. Anyway, thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Davidson. Is there any response from our presenters today?
Yeah, I appreciate the comments and the criticism. I would say it would probably be best for us to follow up offline and we can sort that out. It's concerning for me to hear that the web form, the communication strategies aren't working out. I do receive all web form communications directly, and I believe we've been covering all of them. So I'd be very interested in finding out if there are some holes. But please, I'd invite anyone to come reach us offline, and we can target any communication issues.
The basic challenge is there's no feedback to the complainant. So I don't doubt that you guys receive the complaints, but you don't acknowledge them. And that leaves everybody wondering who's doing what, and we should be waiting an hour, a day, a month, or never. And then they start making other calls. And it's just, without having that feedback to the complainant, we have an extremely inefficient communication system, at least from the complainant end of it, because now we're just guessing. We're doing a kitchen sink approach. Well, if this guy didn't answer, I'll try somebody else. Keep going until you get a reply. Thank you.
Absolutely. And we do have a component of the web form that notes for a callback. So we do reach out. I'm concerned that if the reaching out isn't happening, then I'd love to find out more about it. I do spend some time on these web forms calling back those who call us. So we are reaching back. I'm concerned, but I would appreciate, let's take this offline and discuss it more.
Good. Thank you. I will look to Director Castle.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments of Director Davidson because as you know, a new director and kind of the one of the few people through this whole process and chain that has their personal contact information public. Of course, we get called the biggest calls the most amount of calls I've been receiving since elected is with regards to highways and maintenance. So I appreciate Director Davidson's concern and frustration around communication, but I also appreciate this opportunity to really fully understand process. As a new director, I'm still trying to respond to all those calls that I get and try to help the public understand. But if I don't understand, it's difficult. So just so that I understand the maintenance specifications. So on a Class A road, when it hits 4 centimeters, you need to go out and clear one lane in each direction. Then when it snows another 4 centimeters, you go out again. So every 4 centimeters of fall, you're out there. Is that how it works?
No, these are just the maximum accumulations. So where we have to maintain that. So we might be plowing the roads, even if it's just 1 centimeter on them. We just have to maintain within 4 centimeters.
Right.
It's winter maintenance is unique that it has these maximum allowable accumulations, but usually other response times are given in a time frame of hours or days or weeks. So just to be clear and to clarify, these are maximum accumulations. They guide us towards our operation, but we will be plowing to the best of our abilities, usually predefined plow routes and plow blocks according to what we've been doing historically.
Awesome. And just to pick up on your comments about wind and drifting, through the last major snowstorm that we had in December in our area, Sylvester Road, lots of drifting, Eagle Road, those areas, and I recognize that in some cases, as soon as the plow goes down the road, it's covering back over again. what are the standards or the processes in that situation when, I mean, I think on Sylvester Road and Eagle Road last December, you could have had a truck just going up and down the road. How do we help the residents in those cases?
I think one thing that the foremen are usually the most knowledgeable in those areas, and they always come up with strategies for improvement. One of the things we're looking at is snow fencing in some of those areas to prevent some of the drifts. I think that'd be accurate.
Yeah.
This usually comes straight from the ministry. So highway improvements aren't really the maintenance contractor thing. We work with the ministry, but the ministry will usually work together with us to find some of those efficiencies and improvements. So for snow blowing, usually it's or drifting rather. Snow fencing is usually the way to do it, and we would install that, whether it's temporary or permanent. Installing it every season. That's some ideas we have for that. Otherwise,
Yeah, and kind of the luxury of winter maintenance. There are so many variables with winter maintenance. You really don't know how much it's going to snow, and hopefully you know when if you're following the weather forecast. But certainly a lot of variables there. With that, our winter maintenance program is very fluid and adaptable. So it's something like comments from Director Davidson. That's something that should be coming to the ministry for discussion, and we're always open to working with everybody. I know Director Dixon and we're in constant communication about Cultus Lake and a few different hot irons in the fire, and our winter maintenance program really is no different. If you've got concerns or comments from your constituents, certainly pass those on to us, and we're able to incorporate that as much as possible. Now, I can't promise everything will always be attended to. If you can imagine how many complaints about our roads you guys are receiving, you can imagine how many we're receiving. And when we get 2,500 complaints over a weekend, it takes a little bit of time to get to those. So just hopefully everybody's kind of on the same page with how that works. And like I said, very adaptable. So communication is key.
Thank you. And through the chair, I appreciate that. And I will note that every single correspondence that I sent out to Modi during the storm was responded to very quickly. So thank you for that. Just pick up on the snow fencing. I love to hear that. I have a home in a part of the world where there's 4 feet of snow for like 4 months, and the snow fencing infrastructure around that area is phenomenal. If there are areas where residents are, they're dealing with drifting on and on, is that something that we could would that be something that I'd reach out to you and just say, can we take a look and consider how to address some of the drifting in this area? Is that appropriate?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We've got a fairly unique area out near en route to Harrison Hot Springs, around the Highway 9-7 merger, where we've got some private property that's been offered up by a local farmer to help us out with some very gusty conditions through that corridor. And essentially, that's just a little bit of communication. What can we do? We'll do a little bit of brainstorming, and we can put it in action from there. So again, I think the common theme is just communication, and that's really how we fight the winter battle.
Good. Thank you, Director Castle. We'll move forward. Thank you.
excellent. Okay, so I'm not quite sure where we left off. I think we finished this slide over, yeah, I think that's all we had about classifications. Really good point what Neil said about the classifications being defined by vehicles per day. Not really for anyone to really decide what it is, but it's based on that definition of vehicles per day. The only caveat is school bus routes and industrial truck traffic routes. They are given the classification of 5C on side roads. So it's very important that, me and myself in the ministry, we meet with school districts and we get the new school bus routes list so that we can update the classifications. Of course, the contract has means to change classifications. It's very standardized. It's very seamless. When classes need to change, they are changed, and we usually start operating under that class change even before it's officially done in the contract. So very important point to get the school bus routes updated every year. Other winter activities. I always like to talk about what other activities we have going on in the winter. It's not just winter maintenance. It could be we could be going through crazy blizzard conditions on Highway 3 up at the pass, and it could be a sunny day in Abbotsford. So we still have to manage all of the response times, even summer response times, even though it's not summer. Vegetation control is based on, I think, summer classifications. And if we have got vegetation issues out there in Abbotsford, trees falling, danger trees and hazards, we still have to respond to them according to the classifications. Again, the specifications are available online. They are the Schedule 1. All you have to do is search on Google BC Gov maintenance specs, and they'll be there. For rest area maintenance, there are certain rest areas that are open year round. Some are closed. They are signed accordingly. Drainage maintenance, litter pickup, road surface maintenance. Sometimes we find a lot of patching issues in the wintertime, especially when we get a lot of rain. Patching in the winter is extremely difficult because they often are very temporary and they are unable to stick. We patch in very wet conditions, very cold conditions, giving public the impression that these potholes are neglected, but they really aren't. Often they are just patched and they pop out immediately, and we have to go back and maintain them. But patching is usually a common activity in the wintertime. And of course, there's sign maintenance and highway incident response is a big one for us. Know before you go is a big one. Shift into winter campaign happens in the fall, early winter. This slide is really more for the public. You can share that link and it's all about highway safety and how to prepare for the winter time. The Drive BC number is very important. Drive BC is the website can give you a lot of information on what the road conditions are. You can also get live camera feeds of what the conditions are like. They're sort of live. You get a snapshot every 15 minutes. So if you're going out to, say, the Okanagan, you can get regular footage of what the road conditions are like every step of the way. So it's a very valuable resource, and you can call in the number and get live updates. And also, I think you can report issues as well. Yeah. So if you're in an area like Terrace and you don't know that hey, it's Emil Anderson's maintaining, but you want to report a highway issue, you can call that number and they will pass along the message. Yeah. This is a little screen of the chain up routes in the Lower Mainland here. So color coded according to what the chain of requirements are. This is of course for everyone. There was a legislative change that changed the requirements. Before they were sort of loose. Anything could have really been a chain, but now it's been more closely defined as a proper chains and whatnot. And also a timeline has been adjusted. I think we've pushed it forward from March to April on Highway 5 and Highway 3. These requirements go further into the province, as you can see, but I've got this section outlined as the Lower Mainland. This is an important slide for us. This is sort of the main reason we host the winter stakeholder meetings. It's all about contact information. We have our call center number. That's a 1-800 number, and that reaches our 24-hour call center. They're available all the time, and they can you can report any hazards, any issues, and they will always ask, or they should always ask, if you would like a call back. So we can definitely call you back when you call into us. But we get a lot of communications daily. I think in the summertime, something like 70 to 80 calls a week come into that number. So quite a lot to manage, but it's very important that we hear back from the public on what the issues are like. I didn't have the slide. I didn't have it in the slide, but the patrol frequencies are based on summer classifications, and some classes might not see a patrol for a week, just based on the nature of the specs. So we might not know of a deficiency if it materializes, suddenly, like say a danger tree. So calling in that hazard is very, very important. We do rely on that, and that is part of the operation. Is we want to hear from you and hear what the deficiencies are, if we are outside of a patrol frequency. The main office is there as well. You can contact us during business hours. You can reach the front desk. You can reach myself, reach the ops manager. We're all available if we're in the building, and absolutely no issues if you want to get a hold of us. We often have a lot of Rosedale residents, people coming in and visiting us directly. So that's always an option as well.
Good. Appears we have a question from Director Cass.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair. Are we able to get these slides from you guys? Are you able to send them out to us?
Yeah, I believe I've already sent them, and feel free to, I can send them out. Absolutely.
Yep, perfect. Thank you. Just a couple other points. When you're talking about school bus routes, how How do roads accessing the fire halls, how does that work into a priority sequence?
Go for it.
Right now, that's not defined in the agreement that emergency access roads for first responders are given any priority. However, that being said, we are more than wanting to be notified of any roads that are a priority. We've been talking with people after the last stakeholder meeting about roads that are not leading to the fire halls, but leading to the volunteer firefighters that can get to them. So prioritizing that is a big thing for us. The first responders are our partners in this, and we want to know how we can help out, and we always are very keen on that, especially with our partners, the ministry. So so the roads leading to the fire halls, we definitely prioritize that, and we'll be interested in looking at prioritizing the residences of those involved.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And I do say that when their offer came out, I think from Galrez to send his information to the fire chief, that was really well received. So thank you for that. I can't believe you mentioned litter. You pick up the litter? What's the litter pickup program look like for EAM?
Well, it's there's a lot to it, and you might have noticed today if you were driving on the highway, you would have seen our guys in side by sides driving around and picking up from the median. Yeah, we pick it up as we can, and the response time is I think 24 hours.
Depending on the class, it's spec'd every 30 days for a class A cruise. That's the minimum requirement.
Well, I'm about to go out with my tongs myself along Route 7. So if we could make a work bee of it, that'd be fantastic. It's a mess out there. And signage, 2 comments on that. Director Davison and I had a conversation about adding signage, and he indicated to me that was maybe a conversation with you, Neil. If we had suggestions of signage that may improve highway safety and awareness. And with maintenance, am I allowed to go and wash off the mold and mildew from the DeRoche sign myself, or is that something that would be in a maintenance schedule?
We can tend to that. So I'll put that into the work ID, and we'll get to that for sure.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Castle. Director Dixon.
Thank you. I have a couple questions. Mine is around the process. So with potholes, flooding, those kind of things. So here's how it works in my mind. I will drive through a flooding, and I've seen an Emil Anderson truck maybe in front of me go through the same sort of situation, or through a pothole, kind of back and forth. And in my mind, I'm assuming that Emil Anderson person will fix it or do something. And then I get home, blah, 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 and I see on Facebook or Twitter that there's still this. So what is the process? Because I think it's helpful for people to know. If they eventually contact me, I'll say, well, call that number or let them know. And I think they do. So that's my question. I'm not quite sure what the process is.
So just to clarify the process for pothole patching.
Well, yes, maybe not regular, but just when Emil Anderson is on the road to Cultus Lake, because I see them all the time, and they're driving through the same situations that I am. But the next day it's still there, kind of thing. So what I don't know is, am I supposed to be calling in those potholes or the flooding, or are the drivers who drive by them making notes, we got to fix this pothole, or that's what I mean. Do they all have to be called in?
Control. Okay.
Yeah, we have patrollers, and they perform the work ID. And so they'll put the deficiencies they see into the work ID list, and then we will get to them. So if the patrollers are going through every day, they should be noting down the deficiencies and patching them. Like I said, sometimes the interpretation can be we're not patching them because they pop out so quickly in deficient weather. But the process is that if any employee, any crew member identifies a hazard, including myself, we note it down. We have a mobile application that we use to track some of these deficiencies, put into the plan, and depending on the severity, the seriousness, there's a rating scale of 1 to 5, very straightforward. We will respond to that deficiency within the response time. If you continue to see the same deficiency that hasn't been addressed, it can happen. You know, some guys tunnel vision, you know, they may not be looking at it. Please reach out to us, and if it's still there and you're not receiving any movement, then please get a hold of me. That's what I'm there for. I'm there to make sure that we uphold the quality. It does happen, and I sympathize with you. There's plenty of potholes I've seen that kind of, until I notify the crew members, they sort of, you know, they may not see it, but we will identify the deficiencies and respond to them.
That's great. Thanks for that. Appreciate
Yep.
it.
Thank you, Director Dixon. Director Davidson.
Thank you, Chair. So just sorry, I'm getting feedback again. I don't know why that is sometimes, but anyway, while I've been here, I brought up the email Anderson maintenance online request page, and there is no checkbox for callback requested. So there's nothing visual there would suggest that the complainant requests or not, whether or not somebody contacts them back. So, you know, I'm looking at the slide that you have up right now, and it says every communication is tracked and can be followed up. There's no will be followed up. So that's one of the challenges there, and that's just reiterating my point on communication earlier. I have sort of an open question, I guess, for Neil about what's the recommended process for requesting work not covered by EAM. You know, an example would be signage. You know, if an existing sign is down or damaged, then my understanding that would be EAM's purview. But if a new sign needs to be there, that becomes a design thing that needs to go through MOTI. Is the expectation is we go through EAM for everything, and then it still all comes back to the initial communication challenges I was raising earlier? There was one sign that the neighbors were asking for. It was an engine brake sign. It went some months unanswered by EAM, and then they reached out to me. I reached out to somebody at MOTI, and then it got sorted quite quickly, but I did have to get involved, and that's kind of the inherent challenge in the existing system. So yeah, so what is the recommended process for requesting work not covered by EAM? My question of Neil. Thank you.
Yep, that's absolutely a MOTI issue to take care of. The maintenance contractor is as such. They perform maintenance on our routes, and that's their sole function. Besides that, any addition of signs, if you've got questions about rules and regulations, that all it needs to come to MOTI. So again, I'll just hammer on that communication and the importance of having communications with your local road area manager. I believe you've got Golrace Chima in your area. Yep. And really, he should be your first point of contact. The contact 1-800 number through Emil Anderson essentially is for the public that notes deficiencies or has concerns on while they're traveling. Now, Fraser Valley Regional District is a very important partner with MOTI, and you know, our success I think is builds off of each other's successes. So you know, if there's something that is in your electoral area that needs regulatory attention, certainly fire off that email to your local road area manager, or we've all got an operations manager, currently is Grant Smith. After March, we'll be back to Fubui, who I believe everybody's familiar with. But certainly just a quick reach out to MOT. We can have that sorted within hours. You know, something like engine brake signs, that discussion really could be stopped with a simple phone call. The engine brake signs, I know, especially areas like Hatzick, where we are seeing a tremendous amount of gravel trucks and some mining, some industry. We see the same thing in Columbia Valley, a lot of different areas with side roads, and kind of lost my train of thought there. I apologize.
Well, I'll jump in and give you a chance to recover it. But yeah. So this just kind of leads to this whole sort of, who do I contact? Well, it depends. I don't mean me. I mean, how do I advise the residents in my area to, who do I advise them to contact under what circumstances? Because even looking at the slide that's up there right now, it says, we'll submit a hazard notification, send it off to Emil Anderson. Well, that's great if it's a hazard arising out of a maintenance issue. But if it's a hazard arising out of a design gap, in this case, a sign that should be there, then the reality is you send it off to Emil Anderson, it'll go nowhere because it's not a maintenance issue. It's a design issue.
Yep. and
So
that's where it just needs to come to MOTI. And like I said, the communication really needs to come from the director level down to the road area manager. And certainly we'll stick handle it from there for you.
So before this deck goes any further, can it be reworded to clarify that? Because as it is right now, it's saying if you see something that looks dangerous, let Emil Anderson know. But that's not appropriate from what we just talked through right now.
I think you're referring to a very specific item potentially. It's very rare that a design flaw is communicated. I mean, the majority of callers typically have some form of I guess anger, or they're not happy with what they're seeing, and everybody is a self-qualified engineer at that point. Now, with our routes being provincial routes that are assessed by engineers, there's nothing on our roads that hasn't been thoroughly examined before it's able to be put in place. So,
Yeah, okay, just a second here. I think Director Davidson, perhaps it might be better if you carry on this discussion offline. This is becoming a very particular argument, and we have a very busy afternoon ahead of us. Give Mr. Dat and Mr. Moulton a chance to move on.
yeah, I can follow up with offline, no problem.
Good, thank you. And I would like to commend Mr. Dat and Mr. Moulton for agreeing to present to us today on the subject of roads. You certainly will never have to prove your courage in the future. So, Director McAhonik.
I just wanted to say thank you to some of your team. I've had a few things out in Chilliwack Lake Road as a new director, and Emil Anderson and that have gone out of their way, I found, and it's been very much appreciated. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Director McAhonik. And it should be pointed out that you people are overseeing a road system in one of the most complicated and hazardous places in probably the world. And there are some very extreme winter conditions thrown your way. So it's certainly the work that you do is much appreciated. And we think about that every day. So thanks again. Director Wardenberg.
I just have a question as far as the process. So is there any coordination between you and like 911? So if you get a like a major fire or a house fire structure, major accident, and you're in a snow event, a major snow event, what's the coordination between you and the other emergency services?
Yeah, so the ministry has it's called the TMCBC, the Transportation Management Center, which is situated in Coquitlam, and it is essentially an emergency call center that is in constant communication with ECOM, with 911, first responders on site of an incident, with all of our provincial maintenance contractors, with environmental protection, you name it. It really is the be all and end all of emergency communications. That center operates 24/7. It's very, very heavily staffed, and not only does it deal with emergency situations, it's dealing with a broken down car that's in the shoulder, changing a tire, to major pileups and fatalities, to earthquakes, earth, wind, fire, you name it. All of that runs through the Transportation Management Center, and it's linked in with all of our stakeholders and partners. So yeah, there is constant communication with the ECOMs of the world for sure.
Good. Thank you, Director Wardenberg. And with that, I think we'll allow Mr. Dat and Mr. Moulton to get on with their day. And once again, very much appreciated that you came out today.
I'm going to leave a stack of business cards with Jennifer, if I may, and just want to make sure everybody's got our contact details, and just looking at fostering a relationship going forward. And again, communication is just the most important part of our business. So I look forward to communicating with everybody.
Good. Thanks again. Okay. Turn things back to our CAO.
Thank you. So item 5.2 is the policy to capture funds for FVRD community parks and trails through development applications. And we have a staff presentation by Hasib Nabi.
Mr. Nadvi, well,
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to quickly see if the clicker is working for me. Yeah, perfect. Thank you for this opportunity to present on the policy to capture funds for our community parks and trails. And after my presentation, I have my colleague David Urban with me, so we'd be happy to answer any questions. And I haven't been formally introduced to some of you, so my name is Haseeb Nafi. I'm the manager of planning in Electoral Area Services. So the staff recommendation has two parts to it. So the first part deals with the first part is to seek board direction to bring forward a policy that will capture and utilize alternative cash in lieu funds that we receive for parks and trails. And the second part to the staff recommendation that I'm going to be talking about in the later slides, it's to bring forward a scoping report to utilize development cost charges and community amenity contributions. So these are additional funding streams that we could be exploring. So before we get into the different funding streams for parks and trails, let's talk about a little bit on the demand for parks and trails. So with growing communities in our region and changing demographics, we see an increasing demand. And some of this demand is already being met by some of the projects we have undertaken, whether it's the Lakeside Trail at Cultus, whether it's the Morris Valley Roadside Trail that was done in 2017-18, whether it's the Electoral Area D, the Gray Road Roadside Trail that we have that was done more recently. We do these services and projects to meet some of the existing community demands for parks and trails. But we're also aware of requests from residents about new and additional parks and trails. For example, in Hemlock, the residents are asking for a community trail that connects the residences to the base village area. Very recently, we're having conversations with, we're aware of discussions and requests from Electoral Area D residents for Popham to have crosswalks on EL. We recently did a Electoral Area C official community plan survey, and the survey respondents asked for or indicated requests for new and additional park spaces or trails. And we anticipate that this demand will only increase in the coming days. So under the Local Government Act, there's two ways to capture parkland dedication. So the Section 510 of the Local Government Act, what it says is when there's a subdivision application in front of us and it's creating more than 3 or more lots, we can ask for parkland dedication. So the first way to get this would be through physical park space. So anytime there's a subdivision that creates 3 or more lots, up to 5% of the development land, local governments like us can require the applicants to pay or provide to us. And the second way we can do, if we're not taking physical space, is to actually take cash in lieu contribution for the same 5% parkland acquisition. So instead of taking physical park space, we can take money. But this money has some legislated provisions that it needs to meet. It needs to be set aside in a reserve fund, and we can only use this money to acquire parkland. So that creates some challenges. So for example, in some of our electoral areas, we may not need to acquire new parkland. Maybe the need is to provide more park improvements, or maybe it's there's a need for trails. But this money that we get cannot be used towards trails or other broader community benefits. So very recently, what we have been doing is we have been taking alternative contributions. So this is an alternative funding mechanism for getting an equivalent cash in lieu amount, but it's for a broader purpose. So it could be used towards parks, it could be used towards trails. A good example would be, suppose under the park dedication, under the legislative framework, we get 5% of the park, and that amounts to $140,000. Now, this $140,000 can only be used towards acquiring parkland. But instead, we can request the applicant to give us a voluntary contribution, which would be the same $140,000, but we could use it towards, one example would be Lakeside Trail. So instead of buying parkland, we are using it for broader community benefits. And that's captured in some of our, it's one of our recent OCPs. So that would be the electoral area Depop and Bridal Falls. So we have a policy there which talks to this alternative contribution for parks and trails. So what we are asking is to bring forward a policy in front of the board to understand and capture how these funds will be utilized. So for example, funds that we acquire within the in the electoral area should be utilized for the same electoral area community benefits. We need to tie them to Parks and Trail Reserve funds so that we know where the money is going and how they're being utilized. We need to also think about priorities for spending these funds. These priorities could come through a board resolution depending on community demand, or it could come from our official community plans or parks and trail plans that we have already. So the second part of the recommendation is to bring forward a scoping report to utilize development cost charges and community amenity contributions. So these are additional funding streams that we could be exploring. So if these additional funding streams, what I've done is I've separated them into two categories. So the first category is the funds that are the tools that could generate substantial revenue, and these are more frequent. Service area taxation would be one example. So this would be the most effective way of collecting or generating revenue that pays towards funding these community parks and trails demands that we have in the future. There are other tools that we can implement and explore. So there would be development cost charges or community amenity contributions. So these tools offset some of the burden from our service area taxation. I'm going to be speaking to them in my next couple of slides in detail. The other category would be, there would be rare opportunities and they would generate modest revenues. For example, waiver of sidewalks. Before I get into the sidewalks waiver, I should preface this conversation by saying that sidewalks are important. They're important for community connectivity. Our general practice is not to waive sidewalks, but there are instances where we may be under our subdivision servicing bylaw, we may be creating half an acre or less lots, but the neighborhood may not even have sidewalks or a sidewalk service area. So in those instances, instead of waiving sidewalks, we may be able to take that equivalent amount of cash and put it towards, for example, it could be a trail, it could be linear parks in Area D that we do. The second opportunity is variances to our parking requirements. Now in our electoral areas, private properties, 90 to 95% of what we have is single family dwellings. And it's a very standard requirement is to have 2 parking spaces for a house. And we don't plan on recommending varying these. And we don't rarely get a lot of these applications to vary single family home parkings. But there may be instances in the future where the board may be contemplating variance applications for multifamily or commercial development. So because we're bringing forward a policy, this just adds all the tools that we have under the Local Government Act and how we can utilize. But this would be very rare and they would generate very little to modest revenue. So some of the effective tools we have under the Local Government Act, one of them is development cost charges. So these are a great tool that will offset some infrastructure expenditures we have that's related to growth. And today we're talking about park acquisition and capital improvements. So that's one of the items that we could charge DCCs on, but it doesn't need to be limited to that. There's water, sewer, and road services that we could ask DCCs for. We don't maintain roads, but there's some few opportunities even for roads DCCs that we could explore. So there are one-time charge that we would have for a time of development application. So whether it's subdivision approval or building permit issuance, so we could charge them. I should note that not 100% of your capital expenditures could be covered through DCCs. There's always needs to be an assessed factor that comes from service area taxation, but the level or the appropriate level of that assessed factor can be determined by the board. There's a considerable amount of front-end work to get to a development cost charge bylaw. Even before that, we have to understand what our assets, what kind of growth we're expecting, what kind of capital improvements would we have in the next 10 to 20 years. So it requires multiple departments to work together. So that's why the second part of the recommendation is really to bring a scoping report to understand the implementation of DCCs.
Just a question, if I could, Mr. Navi, this assist factor, is that, we would set out a policy in all cases, the assist factor is 90-10, or is it, does that change with each project?
Yeah, it could change with each project. So the assist factor really comes into when we consider the DCC bylaw. So before we get to the adoption of the DCC bylaw, the board needs to decide. And within DCC, so what will happen is we're gonna, if it's a 10-year outlook or 20-year outlook, so we're gonna first identify the capital projects or the capital improvement projects that are related to the growth we need. And once that's identified, you'll have a budget amount, right? So let's say it's $10 million that we need to have in the next 20 years. So then you say how much of this should be paid by development and how much of this should be paid by service area taxation. So the board decides based on the bottom line of how much money that we need to collect to provide for these services. The board can make that decision. So this would be a DCC bylaw consideration, but the conversation is better held when we know the budget or the cost that we need to have over the next 10, 20 years.
Thank you.
Unlike DCCs, the Local Government Act or provincial legislation doesn't provide a framework for community amenity contribution. We do this through board resolution or policies. So community amenity contributions are a really good opportunity for development to contribute towards the anticipated demand increase on our existing amenities or new amenities that need to be provided because there is an anticipated growth. Many local governments use it. But it's not through legislation, but through a policy. We do have Area D official community plan that speaks to exploring community amenity contribution for development. We are working on Area C official community plan right now. So we would be exploring community amenity contributions for during the course of that official community plan. So some examples of community amenity contribution would be, it could be transit stops, it could be a library, it could be a community hall, it could be a fire hall, ambulance station, right? Or for the purposes of this report, it could be a parks and or open space. So it could really vary. So through a policy, the board decides what kind of amenities are required in which electoral area and what kind of anticipated growth and demand we're seeing. So the board kind of sets a policy direction on these are the types of amenities that we'll look. But it doesn't mean that it's only limited to those. As you know, growth and applications come in front of us, there's a negotiation that we can have to understand what kind of community amenities are required.
Davidson?
Director Davidson, go ahead.
So I'm struggling to understand that the sequence of this, you know, whatever your mechanism is for collecting funds and whatever your target is for those funds, unless there's a service area to maintain whatever it is you're hoping to build, my understanding is you use the term assist, you don't have enough funds to adequately to build it unless you go to that service area, and then you'll need that service area again to maintain whatever it is that you build. But if that service area doesn't exist yet, and that service area needs to go through a public consent process, it just strikes me that there's a risk you could collect a lot of money that just never sits there because the service area never happens. Do you have any sort of thoughts on that? That's just sort of what's jumping out at me, but thank you.
That's right. So we have existing service areas, whether it's for parks and trails, whether it's for water, whether it's for sewer. So one way to look at it would be you could either have these whatever anticipated demand and the service you would need to provide through service area taxation, or you could implement DCCs to offset some of those costs from service area taxation.
But I'm still struggling, like, for example, in the case of if I was to collect DCCs in support of our water system or building permits or whatever, and it's going to be for something, but I can't build that something unless I create another service area. And that other service area becomes that public consent process, which may not succeed. So I'm just trying to, it just strikes me there's a risk you collect all this money and then you've got nowhere to use it because you haven't been successful in creating that next service area.
So that's right. So DCCs are connected to growth. So when you get new development applications, that's when you're going to collect DCCs. So for example, if the development application doesn't pass, there may not be a need to create that expansion of service area. So there may not be a need to pass the service area bylaw. So if the development proceeds, because DCCs are connected to growth, then you'd be looking for service areas as the development is approved by the regional board, and you'd be implementing DCCs within those service areas.
Okay, good. Thank you, Director Davidson. I think there's perhaps some procedural issues here that can be worked out in the future. We're just getting a general idea of the discussion today. Director Makahonic has some technical issues, so she's going to use my microphone.
Hi, through the chair. So help me understand. So I guess my question kind of goes back to the first part of your presentation. So currently, if there's some funds set up, you talked about the 3 properties, and if they certain things have to happen, then they're supposed to be directed to parks, and then it would include parks and trails, and then I heard it would be included to parks, trails, and OCPs. So I guess my concern is that parks in particular, but trails, we could be losing future ability to have parks by putting that funding into OCPs, because once that ability to get designated for parks is gone, it's gone. So and I might not be understanding this clearly. So
No, that's
so
a very
bear with
valid
me, but
question.
So that's my concern. So I think that we could find, my understanding is OCP funding you can find from different places, but when you get funds specifically designated for parks, that's not easy to do. It's a whole different thing. So maybe help me understand that. Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair to Director Makahonic. So you have a very important question. So, and I should clarify. So when the alternative cash in lieu doesn't go towards official community plans or the creation of official community plans. What I'm speaking to is the official community plans would identify parkland acquisition or future park spaces that we need. So it would already say, for example, in Poplar, it will say the next, where do we see the next few parks? So we're strategically placing them around the new development nodes. Now, if there's a development and we see there's a need for a new park that's already identified in the official community plan, then we would always use the money towards acquiring new parkland. But there may be times, for example, there's a couple of applications in Electoral ARD around existing community parks, or there's a community park that's going into Mentors. So we don't need to create new parkland around for those subdivisions. Where in that case, instead of taking the money for acquiring new parkland, what we are suggesting is we could use that alternative cash contribution towards maybe improving the current parkland that we have. But that money doesn't take away money from acquiring parkland either. It just gives the board a tool to make a decision whether that money is going to be used for parkland, acquiring parkland, or does it go towards a trail that's more needed in the community. So it just adds more option to our toolbox.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Makahonic.
So with community amenity contribution, just to pick up on this, so same, there's a lot of front-end work with bringing this policy. There's a lot of considerations, both with DCCs and community amenity contributions, to see how we can implement it. There's a lot of questions that we need to explore together between staff and the board. So the recommendation is that staff bring forward a scoping report to further extend these conversations in the future, sometime this year, when staff have a more in-depth opportunity to bring forward these reports. So just to summarize, so the staff report in front of the committee and the board really seeks to receive board direction on bringing forward a policy that captures and utilizes the alternative cash and lieu funds we have for parks and trails. And it also seeks direction to bring forward a scoping report in the future to utilize development cost charges and community amenity contributions. Thank you.
Good, thank you, Mr. Nadby. Any questions, directors? So we've got a problem with microphones going down here, but Director Dixon, take it away.
I'll just go over here now. Thank you. Thank you for this report, Mr. Nabdi. Quick question, when I'm looking at the staff report and the cost, and it says there's no cost associated, created, but it's currently outside of the EA work plan, and then it goes on to say that it would require updates to OCP policies and all the rest of that. So I guess my question is, are you asking today, or, you know, whether or not we'd like you to, the planning department, to go further down this road? And if that is the approved, say, how does it fit into the EA work plan if it's not in the current EA work plan?
Through the chair to Director Dixon. So what the cost section in the report speaks to is, you're right, right now it's not in the current 2023 work plan, but we can bring forward a scoping report to say what would be the steps to implementing something like a DCC or community amenity contributions in a future year's work plan. And you're also right to say that we are really seeking direction to go farther down in this path if the board wishes us to. So it would be just, we would bring a report that will say or speak to how we can have, or the steps to implementing DCCs or CACs. It wouldn't bring a DCC bylaw in front of us, or it wouldn't bring us community amenity contribution policy in front of us this year. It's just, there's a lot of work that needs to go to even understand how we can do this in our electoral areas in a consistent manner.
Good, thank you, Director Dixon. So Director Davidson, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So for myself, my struggle in this is that I'm trying to bring this down to earth, to like a real world scenario that's relevant to Area F. And, you know, I recognize, you know, the merit in pursuing this and having that conversation. But I can't speak to the other electoral areas, whether they are jumping at this and thinking, yeah, this makes perfect sense. I need to know more. And if the other electoral area directors are want to pursue this, and they'll fully support it. But for myself, I'm kind of at a loss. So yeah, I'm just hoping to hear some director saying that for their area, yes, we absolutely want to look at this more closely, and then I'll support it. Thank you.
Good, thank you, Director Davidson. Director Wardenberg.
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, I'll give you that recommendation, Director Davidson. I thoroughly support this. As far as DCCs, I've been part of developments in the past. I guess I should start with this question. The DCCs are not uncommon, or how common are they in other jurisdictions?
I haven't done a, again, we haven't done a scoping to understand or to see in which other jurisdictions DCCs are available, but it's very common in municipalities. It's a very common tool that municipalities implement and use. It's for water, sewer, roads, and park that municipalities are typically use it for. In terms of understanding regional districts, and regional district of Nanaimo is undertaking a DCC bylaw implementation right now. I'd have to look into other regional districts to see where they implement it, but we do have some DCC bylaws already in our regional district. Starling may know those better, but there's probably water DCCs that we have already.
Okay, good, thank you. Also through the chair, just a few comments. I find this to be very important because it gives us another avenue of revenue that we haven't or only have a small part of. We're going through the taxation budget at this point in time, and from what I see, except for maybe a small DCC area in Area D, we don't have much option as far as any other revenue. And to bring this to the next stage, like you say, we're not creating any bylaws this year, but I agree that it's worth going forward, and it has my 100% support. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Wardenberg. And Director Castle has pointed out that we should be looking to get a motion on the table here. So do we have a motion? Director Wardenberg is supporting the staff recommendation. I'm assuming, yeah, seconder, Director Castle. So continuing discussion, Director Castle.
Thank you. While it's pretty much known fact that there's not a lot of developable land in Area G, I understand the importance and the benefit of DCCs and CACs, and especially in areas like Area C. I think it's very, very important that we explore these opportunities. So I'll be in support of the motion.
Good. Thank you, Director Castle. Reading the staff report, it appears this is somewhat new ground for electoral areas, and there are limitations to DCCs as they apply to electoral areas, and community amenity contributions. Sounds like it's very much voluntary program. It doesn't sound to me like this is necessarily going to be a cornucopia of new funding. What would Mr. Nadvi's assessment of that be?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So when it comes to the parkland alternative cash in lieu, so you're right, this is not a new source of funding or revenue. It's the developer or the applicant has the right to put it towards voluntary contribution or towards just specifically acquiring parkland. So when it comes to a parkland acquisition, this 5% that we'd be requesting is not new revenue stream. It's not a new revenue stream. It's the same equivalent amount of money that we will take for a broader community purpose, which would be just for parks and trails. When it comes to additional funding streams like the DCCs and CACs, they need to be explored. You're right. Director Davidson is also right that, there are new grounds for us to cover. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of research that staff will need to do between multiple departments. There's a lot of things we need to bring forward to even understand how we can implement it and which electoral areas need it, or maybe. So there's a lot of questions that's not answered. It's just an opportunity for us to proceed towards exploring how we implement these.
So the utility of this exercise, you feel quite confident that this is warranted, that there is a good probability that we are going to generate sufficient funding to make it worthwhile?
It's for areas where we are seeing development growth, it's a very effective tool to offset some of the service area taxation burden. It's well utilized in other electoral areas. But again, that needs to be explored for our regional district to see how it works for us.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. Nadvi. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of Director Johnson?
Sorry, coming in a bit late. So my understanding then is this is the same money that would have been collected, simply put into a different pot that would give more flexibility in how it is used.
For the parkland, for the money we collect through parkland dedication or cash in lieu, that would be the same pot of money. Yes. What the second part of the report or the recommendation is asking is that we explore further opportunities to see if we can have additional funding streams like DCCs. We don't charge DCCs right now. We don't charge CAC, community amenity contributions right now. So, but we already do alternative cash in lieu contributions. So the policies is only trying to create something consistent make a consistent approach to these parks and trail contributions that we already collect. So that's not a new pot of money. But there are additional funding streams that we could be looking into, and that's where we're seeking board direction, that if the board wishes for us to go down that path to explore if we need to look into additional funding streams like DCCs and amenity contributions, then we could do that. We could explore it this year and have a more in-depth conversation about them.
Thank you.
Good, thank you, Director Johnson. Director Dixon.
I just told Director Dickey I'm lost. Okay, so we're voting on, you're going to prepare a policy, if that's what it is, that that may include DCCs and CACs and other sources. And then you'll bring that back, and then that's where we'll see a dollar impact, or if more staff are required to run DCCs and all of those. Will that be all in it? I'm not opposed to exploring alternate ways to collect funds from developers to enhance the neighborhood type of thing. But I might not be really all that interested in needing to hire like long-term staff. Like, so that's what I'm not quite sure what to anticipate really.
Yes, so the next step would be really to bring forward these the resource requirements that we'll have to even implement a policy like this, or the requirements or the resource or cost or the timeline that we'll need to even have DCCs or CACs in our communities. Yeah, so that's really the next step.
Good, thank you, Director Dixon.
Davidson,
Director Davidson, go ahead.
just on picking up on Director Dixon's theme, if you had to give a rough estimate, how many person days of effort do you expect to need to put into this to produce this scoping report?
It's hard for me to say right now, but it will require multiple departments. So it will definitely require Parks and Trails integrated planning and EA planning to work on it. But it's hard to really give an estimate, but we could make that time this year if the board wants us to dive into it.
I guess I'm a little concerned about open-ended initiatives then, and its impact on the work plan as a whole. Would it be reasonable to ask that you get an estimate for the scoping report? I'm just wondering about referring this back and come back and say, yeah, you think it'll take X number of days of effort to produce that scoping report. I really don't have any sense as to this is a big initiative, a small one, and how it impacts everything else that's on the work plan.
Mr. Nadvi, we're putting you in a difficult situation. What can you tell us?
Through the chair to Director Davidson, we can definitely bring forward a report in the future to understand the timeline and the resource requirements to bring forward such as scoping report. We can also reach out to area directors and have conversations as well to explain this further. So that's definitely possible. Yes.
So that would appear to be a change in the motion that's before us.
Yeah, so, sorry, Director Davidson.
Go ahead, Director Davidson.
I'm going to move to refer this back to staff to follow up with individual directors as needed and provide a level of effort estimate.
Okay, so on a motion of referral, there is no discussion regarding the main motion. The only discussion is whether this motion shall go to referral or not. We're looking for a seconder on the motion to refer. It appears we do not have a seconder. Okay, so on the main motion, any further discussion? So the main motion as it stands is that the Fraser Valley Regional District Board directs staff to create a policy to capture and utilize funds collected through alternative cash in lieu contributions at the time of development applications and used towards community parks and trail connectivity, and that the Fraser Valley Regional District Board directs staff to bring a scoping report on the utilization of development cost charges and community amenity contributions for park and other community amenity purposes. So the scoping report would be needed prior to the policy.
That's correct.
And that is workable for staff under this motion?
Yes.
Okay, good. We got a plan. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Contrary, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Nabby. A rather complicated issue.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Move-
looking
move-
back to Ms. Kinnaman.
Moving down to item 6.1, we have the draft Electoral Area Services Committee open meeting minutes of January 12th, 2023.
Motion, Director Wardenberg, second Director Johnson, any discussion? Director Director Adamo.
Just one correction in the update from directors. I did not attend the Yale dinner, but I was just informing everyone that the Yale dinner was a success and that a number of people did attend it. Thank you.
Good, thank you, Director Adamo. So with that change, all those in favor, contrary, the motion carries.
Item 6.2 is the draft Electoral Area Services Committee of the Whole open meeting minutes of January 19th, 2023.
For a motion, move Director Johnson, second Director Adamo. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
Item 7.1 is a motion for which notice has been given, and it's the prohibition of fireworks. Comments from Directors Castle and Wardenberg.
Okay,
So
Director
moved.
Castle appears moving the motion.
Yep.
Okay. Seconder, Director Wardenberg, any discussion? Director Castle.
Thank you, Chair. During the election campaign, I heard from a number of residents on the north side of the river who were concerned about the use and sale of fireworks, in particular during the prolonged drought we experienced last year. Concerns that were brought forward at that time were with respect to the potential of ignited fireworks causing wildfires in the extremely dry conditions. Soon after the election in October, both I and Director Wardenberg were invited to meet with the elected chief and council of Lacamo First Nation. A priority item on the agenda at that meeting was a request from LFN to the FERD to prohibit the sale of fireworks in electoral areas. LFN imposed a law establishing permitting requirements for the manufacturing, packaging, repackaging, selling, and discharging of fireworks and firecrackers on their territory a few years ago, which resulted in the relocation of a retail fireworks outlet off of LFN territory to a location almost right across the street, across the slough, in fact, which is not on LFN territory. Soon after that, right around Halloween, I started receiving messages from dog owners in the city of Mission who requested that the FERD ban the sale of fireworks, as was done in the city of Mission and other municipalities in the FERD some years ago, to prevent access to obtaining fireworks in Desroches that are then brought into Mission and set off within the city where they are prohibited. In the past weeks, I've received a handful of emails and messages requesting that I bring this to the board for consideration. After speaking with Director Wardenberg, we would like the support of EASC to have staff bring a report back to this committee examining the ability of the FERD to effectively restrict fireworks and firecrackers within areas C and G, and perhaps to reach out to Lacamo First Nation to better understand their laws and process around these items, and if it would be considered effective for the FERD to implement a similar structure. I like the approach of LFN in requiring permitting versus an outright ban, as I do recall fond memories of controlled fireworks displays happening at the Desroches Community Hall when I was a kid. And I don't want to restrict that sort of use, but I do think we can help our neighbors who have concerns about causing wildfires, bringing undue stress and anxiety to pets, and general safety when it comes to fireworks and firecrackers. I'd like to know if this sort of bylaw gives the RCMP any tools that might help them in keeping residents of the electoral areas safe. And I do have a letter from LaCamel First Nation inviting the FVRD staff to reach out to them if they'd like some more information. I appreciate the committee's support of this motion and invite any other EA director to include their area in this motion if they so choose to.
Good. Thank you, Director Castle. Director Wardenberg.
Yes, I support this motion. I just want some clarity. Just one question. I just want to make sure that and through to staff, I guess the question, or through the chair to staff, I guess the question, this scope of this report would or would not include First Nations land.
Through the chair to Director Wardenberg, the FBRD does not have the ability to enact regulations on First Nations land. But if I could just take this opportunity, because I would like some clarity from a staff perspective on the motion itself versus what I've just heard from Director Castle. The motion itself refers to the prohibition of the sale of fireworks, but what I'm also hearing is about the discharge of fireworks. And I just want some clarity if that's the expectation of the report is around the FVRD's ability to regulate that business of selling fireworks as well as enforcing the restriction of the use of fireworks. If we could just get some clarity, please.
Yes, through the chair, it would also include the looking at if we can be effective in banning the discharge of fireworks as well.
So if I may make a suggestion, the motion should actually reflect that.
Absolutely.
Good. So perhaps Director Castle would like to amend the motion to include the discharge.
Yes. Do you need me to read that out? Nope. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Before we go to amendments, excuse me, Chair, I was just going to suggest that we might want to get a bunch of them together because I know I want to include area F and we could be re-amending this many times before we're done. So maybe you want to compile the amendments into one.
Okay, so
I agree with, through the chair to staff, I agree with Mr. Davidson and Mr. Castle. I would also like to include area B in this.
okay, so
Through the chair,
Yeah.
I think realistically speaking that the report would always be just speaking generally to electoral areas. And in the event that there was an opportunity and there was a staff recommendation that this would be effective and worthwhile, certainly in the past, we have had electoral areas choose not to opt into certain bylaws, but any report would be applicable to all 8 electoral areas.
Okay, good. So, but we do need to amend the main motion to include the discharge of fireworks.
Yes, please. We need a
along with the
mover
sale of
and then a
fireworks. So
seconder.
that is Director Castle's motion second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The
If I can-
seconder, we'll get a seconder, I believe it was Director Wardenberg would be in favor of the amended motion. Okay, good. So it's on the table. Director Adam.
Question then, please. Perhaps this can be written up in a way that while I am, I've made present or aware, everyone aware, I'm against fireworks, generally speaking, all around, but perhaps this can be something that's more seasonally related. In my area, all of area B, it's ridiculous to think that you could get away with fireworks at any time during our fire season, which is expanding and getting greater now. But perhaps a winter firework event would be approved. Is there some way that we want to word that, or is anybody interested in wording that so that a seasonal type of fireworks thing can be acceptable under certain parameters?
Through the chair to Director Adamo, I think what would occur in a staff report on this subject would be a survey of what is being done in other jurisdictions. And certainly I am aware that in some jurisdictions, there are certain days of the year where the fireworks are permissible. And the report would speak to the effectiveness of those jurisdictions and their experiences.
Good, thank you, Director Adamo. So maybe through to staff, just a question on regulatory powers within electoral areas are different than regulatory powers within municipalities. How effective are our powers in trying to limit this subject?
Uh, Chair Dickey, I will turn things over to Mr. Daniluz to comment on this, but I would just caution the committee that this really isn't a motion directing staff to bring back a report, and I would really rather not get into analyzing and preparing all that information in advance, but just generally speaking in terms of the regional district's ability to regulate business, perhaps Mr. Daniluz could speak to that.
Thank you, through the chair. We do have an opportunity under the Local Government Act to regulate or prohibit the sale of fireworks. Regional districts, just doing a quick scan, I see regional districts have adopted bylaws that both regulate and prohibit the sale and use of fireworks. So we know that others are doing it, and there's a fairly clear authority, in the Local Government Act that enables us to do it. There are limitations. It's limited by the Provincial Firearms Act, for example. Fireworks Act, rather. So I do know that we've got an authority, and I do know that others do it, but I'll tell you that's about the extent of my knowledge of it at this point.
Good, thank you, Mr. Daniluz. So we are foisting more work onto staff, and electoral areas are far flung and geographically complicated, and trying to enforce things on that scale relative to a municipality might be something to think about. But obviously this has a level of support amongst the directors, so I think it's probably worthwhile that our staff look into this further. Director Dixon, did you have?
Just point of clarification. So at some point, if this passes, there'll be a report, but a service area, I'm assuming, would need to then be established for any of the electoral areas that wanted to go down this road based on whatever the report indicates?
Through the chair to Director Dixon, and I'm not certain that that would be the case. This might likely just fall under the regular bylaw enforcement service area that you share. However, I do appreciate Chair Dickey's comments that this is not something that was contemplated in the 2023 work plan. I'm not entirely certain when we could bring this forward, but we'll have to look at all of the projects that are currently underway and balance it within the existing work plan.
Sure, absolutely.
So then potentially it would be adding more to our bylaw officers that are already quite busy in their areas. Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you, Director Dixon. Okay, on the motion, all those in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
Chair Dickey, could we just see the raised hands again? Because unfortunately we weren't able to capture what the vote was.
Okay.
So in favor, we had 5 in favor. Thank you, Director Davidson.
Yeah, I did not see anyone voting against.
Thank you. Moving down to item 8.1 is the 2023 grant and aid application for the Desroches and District Community Association and Electoral Areas C and G.
Okay, motion.
So moved.
Director Castle, second Director Wardenberg. Any discussion? Director Castle.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to take a moment to thank the Desroches District Community Association for their ongoing work and efforts to maintain the Desroches Community Hall, which for many, many decades has been the heartbeat of not just the Desroches community, but also Dudney and Lake Arop. And I'd also like to thank Director Wardenberg for his support of a contribution from Area C.
Good, thank you, Director Castle. Director Wardenberg.
Through the chair, thank you, Director Castle. I just a couple comments. The halls are got a little soft spot for me. This one, I believe they was starting in 1948. I happened this just for everybody's knowledge. I'm a big supporter of community halls. We're losing them all the time. Also, I'm the president of the Harrison Mills Community Hall, which happened to be started in 1942. Thank you.
All right, we're getting a history lesson. Thank you, Director Wardenberg. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
Item 8.2 is a 2023 grant and aid request for the Lake Arop Community Association and Electoral Area C.
For a motion, move Director Wardenberg, second Director Castle. Discussion. Director Warden.
Yeah, just for comment, the purpose of these funds are given to Lake Stewardship. They are it's just a one-time deal. If you look at the report, the staff report, I just want to clarify that this is done before through the program through the Ministry of Environment. They did not get funding approved prior to this, but they will not be looking for this funding. Hopefully they'll be, or they will be applying through the Ministry of Environment for next year's program, but it has my full support. The lake quality and water quality is important. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Wardenberg. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
9.1 is development permits issued in 2022 by the Director of Planning and Development. It's an information report, but happy to answer any questions.
Discussion. Seeing none, all will move forward.
9.2 is zoning and official community plan amendment to facilitate a 3-lot subdivision at 12845 Sylvester Road in electoral area F. And I would just note that there was a letter circulated prior to the meeting via email with respect to this amendment.
Good.
Davidson
Okay,
moving the
David.
motion on the agenda to not give any readings and that the applications be refused.
Thank you, Director Davidson, a seconder. Director Dixon seconds. Any discussion?
Davidson?
Go ahead, Director Davidson.
Right. So thank you, staff, for the report, and thank you to the applicant for the letter. Basically, it comes down to that we do indeed hold changing land designations to suburban residential from anything other than suburban residential to a higher standard. And there's support of that. You need that comprehensive community plan, and it just doesn't support what the applicants are asking for. So without even going to the public hearing stage, I think this application has problems. So for that reason, I'm supporting the staff motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Davidson. Any further discussion? Director Wardenberg.
Yeah, through the chair to staff, I just want clarification. This proposal is a 3-lot subdivision. Proposal is, if they just go with a 2-lot proposal, is a amendment to the community plan required?
Looking to staff.
Yeah, I think we'll have Mr. Daniluz answer that one.
Thank you. Through the chair. No, a community plan amendment would not be required for a 2-lot subdivision.
Thank you, Mr. Daniluz. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
9.3 is a Crown Land Transportation Use Application Referral at Sunshine Valley in electoral area B.
For a motion, Director Adam moves, Director Dixon seconds. Discussion. Director Adam.
First, I'd like to thank everyone that met with me to discuss this. Hasib and Graham, it was great. We had some great information shared back and forth. There is a development taking place in the Sunshine Valley that has really nothing to do with the regional district. As everyone is aware, they've opted out of the planning process that the regional district would take some responsibility for. So this road allowance that's being required or requested, although it's being stated as part of an emergency escape mechanism or a route for emergency purposes, that's really not, the road is already there. It's already been built. I've read this numerous times, and while I'm not opposed to any development within the community, I'm extremely concerned about the studies that were conducted by third parties that have been presented in this proposal or application process that the entire community of the Sunshine Valley has not been aware of. So we have no indication that any of this is being done. And we've not got any permission or any documents from the developer. So this is all something over and above anything that I just can't support that type of a program without more information and without some community input and access to information from the developer. think that's all I have for now. There's
Good.
plenty
Thank
more to-
you, Director Adamo, for giving us a quick summary of issues up at Sunshine Valley. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
Item 10.1.1 is the Electoral Area Fire Department 2022 statistics. Again, an information item, but happy to discuss.
Fire statistics, any discussion? Director Castle.
Hi, yes, thank you. Through the chair. I'd like some clarity around the MVIs out of jurisdiction. My understanding is, with regards to North Fraser, that would be firefighters tending to MVIs in up the Forest Service roads. Can I just get clarification that that's what we're talking about here?
Through the chair to Director Castle, I see that our Manager of Protective Services, Trina Douglas, has come on screen, so perhaps she could speak to that one.
Through the chair, the different areas are outside of the service area. For example, North Fraser Hall 1, the road out in front of the hall is outside of the service area. So different areas allow us to get cost recovery for the calls for the MVIs. Does that help?
I think I need to understand the 23 MVIs out of jurisdiction for North Fraser. Where are those?
Sure. I can, I don't have that information in front of me for the specific locations of those calls, but I can look into that and get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you. And through the chair, who decides whether or not our volunteer fire departments respond outside of their jurisdictions?
That would be a board decision.
Okay, thank you. Through the chair, with regards to the mutual aid, I see instances where North Fraser's has aided with the City of Mission and the District of Kent. I'm wondering if we have statistics with regards to reciprocal mutual aid, whether or not those municipal fire departments, what the frequency of them assisting North Fraser might be.
I don't have those statistics immediately available to me, but I can evaluate whether or not I might be able to access that.
Okay, thank you. And finally, just with regards to recruitment, we're seeing a huge reliance on our volunteer fire departments, and I'm wondering, I don't need and maybe not even in this forum, but I'm curious as to our recruiting processes and how successful we are in that. So I don't know if that would be more appropriate for us to have a conversation offline, or if you have any information about that now.
Sure, I can, I don't have the numbers that we've had on our recruitment for 2022 or 2023, but I can touch base back with you on that as well. North Fraser has had a number of new recruits. I just can't give you those accurate numbers at this point.
Perfect, thank you. I look forward to a conversation, Trina. Thanks.
Sure,
Good, thank you, Director Castle. Any Director Dixon?
Mr. Chair, through you to Ms. Douglas. What was I going to say? When I look, who do you share these stats with? And I have a follow-up question once. And the reason I'm asking that is because when I look at these stats, over half of the total calls, it looks like our medical or motor vehicle response and things like that. And I know there's a huge push to spend a whole lot of money training our firefighters to fight fires, but and I understand that we do need them trained and safe, but in the case of the rural fire departments, it looks like they're doing far more of other things, and so that's why I'm wondering who sees these stats beside us.
I'm not sure how to answer that question, actually, sorry. Like, are you asking, sorry, for clarification, are you asking, do I share these stats out?
No, I'm asking, do you
Curious.
share them with the people that are making the playbook? And
Oh,
have the really high fire, I believe it's firefighting training standards
sure.
for, yeah.
The Office of the Fire Commissioner we do report any structure fires to the Office of the Fire Commissioner, so they would have the statistics associated with those structure fires, which would include vehicle fires.
Good, thank you, Director Dixon. Director Wardenberg.
Yeah, through the chair too. Just clarification on the numbers here. I'm not sure about the other fire departments, but North Fraser, this number reflects all three. I believe it's three fire halls in the North Fraser jurisdiction. And correct me if I'm wrong, the other ones are just one.
For the North Fraser, yes, that's three halls are responding to those calls through and other areas do. Yale has 2 halls, Boston Bar has 2 halls. Does that help to answer the question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Good, thank you, Director Wardenberg. Director Adam.
Thank you, through the chair to staff and Trina. Is there any way, I know that we're an independent fire department in the Sunshine Valley. Is there any way that we can include for future reference our information so that you would have some records of that as well as we move forward into the future and try to figure out what to do with our own volunteer fire department? I think that information would be valuable for the regional district staff to obtain and maintain.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you're asking on that. Sorry. Are you asking if
Sorry,
we would like to have that information?
Yeah, would it be beneficial to provide that? I mean, I feel so lonely here, having a fire department that has more calls than most and highway incidents and things like that, and we're completely self-funded. And I guess I'm looking towards the future in an area where we come back into the fold of the regional district, and the information of our history and our performance right now with BCIS and the RCMP and Ministry of Highways might be important as we try to develop a new program.
Perhaps that's a discussion that we can have for future as to whether or not that's something that we would like to move forward with. And if that's something that you would like us to explore, then we can further discuss that.
Thank you.
Good, thank you, Director Adamo. And thank you, Ms. Douglas, for a wealth of information. Thank you. Turning things back to Ms. Kinnaman.
Moving down to reports by area directors.
Okay, so we'll start with Director Castle.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. Is it Adamo or Adamo?
Thanks very much. It is Adamo.
Adamo.
Soft A, hard O.
Thank you for that clarification. I met with Sergeant Jeff Scott of the Mission Detachment of the RCMP with Director Davidson to discuss opportunities to share information and ideas that might help us in improving public safety, and in particular, in the case of Area G, in understanding the trends of data and finding ways to improve traffic safety along Highway 7. I also chatted with Inspector Luco from the Mission Detachment and feel like we're getting closer to being able to employ at least one of the strategies we discussed in December. So I'm feeling good that our efforts seem to be bearing fruit, and hopefully we are making the highway safer for residents of Area G, as well as for those passing through along Route 7. I want to thank Inspector Luco and Sergeant Scott for their initiative and willingness to explore opportunities for policing in the electoral areas. I'm looking forward to my first Nacoman Island Flood Protection Steering Committee meeting, which staff are working to schedule for sometime in February. I expect topics such as the erosion arc, which has formed on the bank of the Fraser River on the top end of McComan Island, as well as the replacement of the drainage pumps on the island, to be hot topics for discussion. I'm looking forward to being able to having the committee be able to give staff some direction with regards to next steps and moving forward with preventing and mitigating the impacts of flooding in these highly productive and valuable agricultural lands. We're also anticipating an upcoming meeting of the Hatzic Watershed Recovery Table as stakeholders, including the FERD, work through developing an action plan to address the impacts of flooding in the Hatzic watershed. I will be, along with some of my fellow directors and I think staff as well, attending the Local Government Leadership Academy seminar February 7th to 9th in Richmond. And I'm hoping to gain some knowledge and skills that will help me be a more effective representative for the residents of Area G and of all of the FERD. And during the RACS meeting this morning, a comment about a road trip to an electoral area piqued my interest. And I just want to throw it out there that I'd be interested in an electoral director tour of any of your areas if I was invited to such a tour. And I'd like to invite my fellow EA directors out to Area G so I can show you some of the challenges as well as some of the successes of our beautiful area in the Fraser Valley. Love to buy you a coffee at Wheels Restaurant if you're interested. So thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Castle. And about 4 of us went out for lunch today, and Director Castle brought up with this idea of us going on an informal road trip into individual electoral areas to give us a better understanding of what issues we are ruling on in these meetings. And after 21 years, I must say I have a pretty poor understanding of the extensivity of our electoral areas, and many of the communities I don't have a good understanding of. I think it'd be certainly a good investment on my part to take a trip around to some of these places. So for us to think about. I will turn to Director Makahonic.
Oh, am I working? Thank you. So I've had the opportunity to talk to a few staff on different things, and people have been really helpful. So thank you so much. I was able to attend, I had hoped to put together a stakeholders meeting on some of the rural homelessness and the abandoned camps and garbage. And I was contacted by Krista Rolick, and they, along with the Indigenous RCMP, had put together a round table. So that was great. And I invited our fire chief, and he and the deputy chief came out. Invited Ross Aikenhead, who has been doing a lot of the volunteer work on getting rid of the garbage, and our outreach workers. So there was a really good representation. There was Sawali, and there was a lot of different local ministry staff and managers that came out, and I think we had a good discussion. So the purpose was to address concerns, best practices, barriers, and solutions. And some of the things that I brought up for my area was a serious fire hazard that we already have, with stress forests, with risk being amplified by climate change or climate events. And then, we have a lot of recreational users. And then on top of that, having the homelessness issues that come with that. That we have our Area E is lacking oversight and amenities to deal with increased visitors and homelessness. We have one road in and one road out in case of emergencies. Environmental impacts to our salmon, the habitat, garbage. In the summer, we have overflow traffic congestion and sometimes dangerous parking issues during peak summer season. And with more people, we have more chance of altercations and safety concerns. And we had a recent altercation safety concern. Cleanup from increasing tourism homelessness is on the backs of overworked, stressed volunteers. Lack of coordination, a lack of coordinated service and foundational plans. Residents track and compile information and monitor the homeless situation and the And like I've been working with them and they're doing a really good job of that. Financial impacts, our roads, ditches, road allowances and crown land are the responsibility of the province, which is 95% of the Chilliwack River Valley. And Fraser Valley Regional District is responsible for private property only through via bylaws and services voted in on a local basis. I did mention that, and I've met with the MLA again on the tipping fees because we do not have funding to get rid of the garbage, and you've got people going out and using their time, their vehicles and their own fuel. And we should be able to have the province step up. So I met with her yesterday on that again. That's my second meeting on that. So just talked about some of the cleanups that we've had, and the very large one we had about 4 years ago, I think, where helicopters came in. It was very expensive. And that people assume that Fraser Valley Regional District has budgets and equipment, but we really don't. So, you know, and having all the province there. Brought the paperwork that Ms. Kinnaman shared regarding rural homelessness, and that how the tension between the environment and the persons that are experiencing homelessness, and how to move forward, and people experiencing homelessness in encampments and public spaces, that they actually have legal and human rights, but we also have that tension of the environmental impacts as well. So talked about solutions, interministerial foundational group with other stakeholders, and I'd already met with Minister Callon regarding a higher level group, but I think a group on the ground as well will be helpful. And just talking about mental health supports locally, detox and treatment that's accessible, affordable housing, you know, and enforcement to the 14-day camping rule, but with options for people to go to when that is 14 days is up, and possibly some pilot projects, which I talked to with the minister, to pay for stakeholder working groups so that we can actually get some stuff done. And then work with a resident and some residents and staff member, and Emo Anderson came out and were able to resolve a bit of a flooding kind of personal property issue. And thank you very much, Sterling, for making that happen. Everybody was quite happy with the results. So really appreciate that. And Post Creek, their ratepayers are looking at some emergency management stuff. So working on that, and I'm thinking they're really on the right track. And also attended lunch today and thought the idea was great. I don't know if people thought my idea of a whitewater rafting trip at my neighbors was like and a lunch was what they were thinking, but we can revisit that for visiting Area E. So, but definitely I think that would be good, just getting, you know, as directors and neighbors to kind of get to know on the ground what we're all dealing with. So anyway, and thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Makahonic. Director Dix.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really don't have a whole lot to report. Getting lots of feedback from residents in my email about potential land use application, I guess, for the facility, possible facility up in my area. So that's keeping me very busy. Other than that, all is well in Area H. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Director Dixon. Director Wardenberg.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment or give my congratulations to my First Nations friends, neighbors, Stahelis First Nations chief and council for their dedication to what will soon be the primary care clinic in Area C. Which I don't want to take any credit for this. I just want to make the announcement so that people are aware that they have through their agreement with the provincial government, through the reconciliation agreement, they were able and are in the process of putting in a primary care clinic for in Area C, which is located right across the street from the Sasquatch Inn, right in downtown Harrison Mills. Credit to the First Nations for the dedication. This has been a long time coming. And the clinic will be for use. It's off reserve. The intent is for use of all peoples, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous, and it'll be a great welcome to Area C. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Wardenberg. Director Adamo, have I got it right?
Thanks, Chair Dickey. Very nice. Couple things. Monday, I got to attend a private meeting with the board members of the Ale Historical Society. They were looking for a letter of support as they apply for their 5-year program. And it was great to see what they are doing and what they continue to do. So on that tour that we have, we will also get a private tour of the Ale Historic Society and everything that it has to offer as well through the summer months. I'll be meeting with the captain of the RCMP for our detachment, Dwayne Farland. He's requested a meeting with Area B to discuss a number of issues that we have throughout the entire meeting. That'll take place next week. Had my first meeting with Trans Mountain Pipeline via Zoom and all of the stakeholders involved. So it's been 3 months, but we finally got that going, and it was very interesting and eye-opening to see the process and the scope of this project, and explain and answered a lot of questions for me, that's for sure. I'd like to congratulate Chihuahua First Nation and their partnership agreement with the District of Hope for their new fire program to get some fire support through the needs that they have. And so they've entered into an agreement as of 2 nights ago. So that was great. They did a lot of hard work together with District of Hope and Chihuahua. So their new council is working very strongly towards that type of thing. And just one last reminder before we all depart here, you're looking for something to do, February 18th, our annual Winterfest in the Sunshine Valley from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. with the highlight of the evening being Nearly Meal at 6:30 p.m. But lots of activities throughout the entire day. And yes, I guarantee there will be plenty of snow for you, and bring your ice skates because it's quite likely you'll be able to skate on the outdoor rink, which is beautiful right now, as well as our little lake that people are skating on. So thanks, everyone.
Great. Thank you, Director Adamo. Director Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I'm not going to repeat my report from earlier this morning, but I will be happy to host the other directors and show them North Bend and Boston Bar. You can start at my place and we'll do North Bend and then across the river, and we can go to the Old Town Inn for lunch.
Great.
you.
Thank you, Director Johnson. Director Dave.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Not much to report. Looking forward to the another Hatzick Lake watershed recovery meeting next week. Director Castle will be there. Director Lum had joined us to the last one. It's may well be, as they call a frank and open exchange of views, which always gets my blood going. So yeah, that's about it for me. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Davidson. And in the Popcom area, January is the month that we try and get an annual report out to all of our residents. The staff were very good in helping me out with stuffing envelopes and getting them in the mail. Sent out about 600 letters, I think. We also held our annual general meeting. We typically get 50 or 70 people out to that. And what was interesting about it this year was we have a new president of our residents association, a young lady who's much more technically literate than I am. And actually at the AGM, it was just a hard copy questionnaire from people as to what they thought about the rate of development in the community, what they think of transportation issues, the gondola projects, etc. And I always make a real emphasis that what we try and do is focus on the residents. It's their community, and I always ask for feedback, and I have trouble getting that feedback. But her survey just was so enlightening. It talked about what people thought of development, the rate of development, how many people support, how many didn't, what they think of the transportation issues around the community. And it was really enlightening to get that feedback. It helped me immensely. I would certainly encourage other electoral area directors to consider doing the same thing. Yeah. Good. And that is the extent of my report. I will turn things back to our CAO.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. So now we move to public question period for items relevant to the agenda. We do not have any members of the public here with us present in the boardroom. However, I will turn things over to our corporate officer, Jamie Van Ness, to see if we have any written comments or folks online.
Thank you. We do have one member of the public who is joining us by Zoom today, and this would be your opportunity to ask a question relevant to the agenda. Just hit the raise hand function. And while I'm providing that opportunity, I would just note we have not received any written questions for the committee. I'm going to just maybe give our viewer one more moment here. And it would appear that they do not have any questions. We can move on to the next item.
Good.
So the next item would be a resolution to close the meeting.
For a motion, move Director Wardbury, second Director Adamo. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
Okay, if you could just give us 2 or 3 minutes to set up the room for the closed portion.